There are 5 altcoins that we need to discuss today. It's a narrative that a lot of people were sleeping on, but over the last 24 hours, it's begun to wake up, and it's one of the crypto sectors I'm extremely bullish on for this bull run, and I believe could exhibit some super strong gains. This comes at a time where Bitcoin is basically just chopping sideways. We had a major dip, we rebounded, we've recently retraced some of that, pretty much just sideways price action from Bitcoin at the moment, alongside dominance, which actually did end up rejecting off this line here. And we have seen a little bit of altcoin favoritism step into the market since Bitcoin put in that local top at 73K. And in light of the dominance shifting slightly towards altcoins, there are a few narratives which have started to emerge. Obviously, we've had AI performing really strongly. Some of the layer ones are actually up today that I spoke about in yesterday's video, despite a lot of other alts being down. And of course, the sector I want to discuss today, which is exhibiting relative strength in the market as well. But I don't just view it as a short-term bet. I actually view it as a longer-term bet that can perform well in this bull run and beyond. So I'm going to give you my altcoin picks for that sector. Before we get into the video, if you're not already subscribed, but you do like this type of content where I provide altcoin opportunities, guides, picks, crypto strategies, and more to help you succeed in the market this year, make sure you do click that subscribe button and hit that post notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. I've got a very big video for you on the weekend, which has some hidden gems in an ecosystem that I think is going to see a massive rotation as some capital starts to flow out of Solana and onto this chain. So that is going to be the video coming your way on the weekend. So you want to make sure that notification bell is turned on. And I know the Noti gang is super strong. You guys watch these videos. You've been supporting all the content. Thank you so much for the recent support. Let's get into today's show. So the narrative that I am alluding to is real world assets. Now, longtime viewers of the channel will be no strangers to real world assets. I've stated many times that it is a vertical that I've got my eye on for this bull run. In fact, back on January 26th, I did a video saying that it would be one of my top sectors for this year. It's been almost 2 months. And actually, some of the alts I discussed then, like ONDO, for example, you can see since January 26th, when it was around 23 cents, it pumped all the way to 80 cents, and it's now settled around 70. So a 3 to 4x there on ONDO. It's been a super strong performer, one of my biggest positions in the real world asset space. But I'm going to give you some other picks today and just give you my broad overview on the sector and the types of altcoins I'm looking at in the sector. So why are we talking about real world assets today, and why are they showing relative strength over the last couple of days? Well, the primary reason is because BlackRock has just announced a new asset tokenization fund on the Ethereum network. So BlackRock, which is the largest wealth asset management fund in the world, has made a strategic investment into a tokenization company called Securitize, and they're also going to start a new real-world asset tokenization fund on the Ethereum network. PC Principal sums it up really well in this tweet. He says, "This goes beyond the surface. It validates tokenization as a concept when the largest asset manager on earth makes the plunge. BlackRock were the first movers with the Bitcoin ETF and prompted other funds to follow suit. While they were not the first movers in regards to tokenization, the domino effect will be the same." And I would 100% echo this sentiment as well. Another interesting tweet I saw more on the narrative side from Gold Cryptos says, "If RWA really takes off, I don't expect to see much more of a pullback. CAI, basically up only for a month straight with minor pullbacks and consolidations in between. Of course, it's not always like this, but generally if a narrative catches on, it follows the same principles." Now, crypto is all about narratives. It's probably less about individual altcoins in the market, and it's about broader narratives and trends in the market where individual altcoins come underneath. And this is how I generally view the market in terms of sectors, and that's why you'll notice in these videos I talk a lot about trends. AI, gaming, meme coins, RWAs are also a sector which I think can perform super strongly. And this is how I roughly view the crypto market. Now, I have been taking strategic bets across the RWA sector for the last few months. Of course, I did that video in January where I shared a couple altcoins, ONDO, Pendle Finance, which have all performed super strongly since. But today, I want to give you an update because not all of you follow me then, and a lot of the altcoins are still at reasonable valuations, I believe, if this is going to be a trend that continues into the future. Now, let me be clear. Not all of the end game real world asset tokenization platforms are currently on the market, and we don't even know what the landscape of RWAs is going to look like in a few years given the regulatory landscape. But what we do know is that crypto trends generally work on hype, they work on speculation, and a lot of the times the market will chase these proxies, so the top bets in the sector, as a way to gain exposure to a trend. And if you see these other asset managers starting to talk about RWA and it starts to become a trend, the prophecy self-fulfills. Kind of like how AI has a lot of coins which aren't even really AI, but they pump when AI pumps because they're considered to be AI cryptos. But beyond that, because that's more of a shorter term perspective on the market. Longer term, I do believe that there will be genuine applications for the tokenization of assets, and platforms that enable this are obviously going to be major beneficiaries, some of which we're going to speak about today. So let's get straight into the altcoins underneath this narrative. The first point I want to make is maybe not an obvious one to everyone, but the oracles like Chainlink are necessary to actually power the effective applications of real-world assets on chain. So you need oracles to feed price data from the real world to the blockchain, and an oracle is the connector between these two data sets that enables efficiency and operations on chain. So if you have a stock price, the price of real estate, the price of a bond or yields off-chain, you're going to need to connect that and reflect that on-chain. And that is what oracles do. They send data, they relay data across multiple chains. And you can see how Chainlink, which is the biggest oracle in crypto, as you can see in front of you, which has delivered over 10.8 billion data points on chain, which is absolutely crazy, and this number is only set to grow. In fact, I think this is going to go into the hundreds of billions, if not trillions, as crypto continues to gain adoption. You can see how they actually operate here with connecting all the on-chain markets and liquidity with one open standard, and their standard is known as the CCIP. So you can see how they relay data from blockchain to blockchain. They also relay data from real-world data inputs to their on-chain equivalent. So the oracles are much needed for real-world assets. Now, this is an indirect bet. So if you want a pure RWA narrative proxy, you're not going to get that in the oracles. But for the ones that want to go slightly more risk off, capture long-term exposure to the sector, but also capture exposure to the growth of crypto, an asset like Chainlink for me is a blue chip. It's a staple of my portfolio, and it's one that I do like to accumulate and I think can perform really, really well in a bull run. And if real-world assets take off, it is going to be a beneficiary. Now let's look at some of the more direct beneficiaries. My biggest holding in the RWA space, and probably my favorite RWA protocol, is ONDO Finance. ONDO Finance is now at 70 cents, but the price action I love. The way it grinds up, it has these pullbacks, it consolidates, it goes up. It rarely has these dips where it falls off a cliff. It did drop from 60 cents to 40 cents, but it continuously on the higher time frames has been making higher lows. And this is for a variety of reasons. There are a few price dynamics which actually lend itself towards price appreciation. One is the fact that it's relatively low float, only 1 bill on the market compared to a 7 bill valuation. A lot of the unlocks from the team and early stage investors, although there are some this year, aren't actually until next year, which bodes well for the token price. And it's become kind of the number one proxy bet for the RWA sector. Similarly to how Render and FET are the major proxies when people trade AI, that's become ONDO with RWAs. So I always talk in crypto about longing the leader, longing the strength. If you're interested in exposure to RWAs, ONDO definitely is that coin. Now, obviously, I don't want to buy into major price pumps. You want to be accumulating on major dips. So this recent dip was a great example. But if you're half bullish on RWAs, this is one to add to your accumulation list. I've done shows about how I actually accumulate altcoins during a bull run in the previous weeks. I'll even link a show in the description, which I think will be really handy if you want to know how I actually buy cryptocurrency. But ONDO is definitely a good one underneath this basket of assets. They're also introducing global markets, which is a new paradigm for securities tokenization. And this is essentially a way for users to trade tokenized securities using prime brokerage services. So you can actually trade stocks, commodities, etc. on chain. That could be absolutely massive. It is kind of a risky play from them. Risky in the sense that it may not take off, but if it does, it could be absolutely huge. So it definitely has that upside. And then obviously the main underlying reason why ONDO is performing is because it gives you a way to earn yield on US treasuries, US dollar, money markets, etc. on chain across a variety of chains like Mantle, ETH, Solana, Sui, Matic, etc. So it's probably the first mover and the leader in this niche. So the oracles, like Chainlink, you can go even riskier with Pith. They're more indirect ways to get exposure. ONDO is a very direct proxy. Let's get into some others. Mantra is one that I recently took a position in. So RWA infrastructure is interesting. There are also a few upcoming ones like Red Belly, which I have my eye on. But this one, Mantra, is a regulatory compliant RWA infrastructure provider for enterprises. So it's essentially an RWA layer 1 blockchain. What differentiates a layer 1 RWA blockchain from a normal layer 1 blockchain is the adherence and enforcement of regulatory requirements which lend themselves to RWA applications. And if you check out their docs and their website, you can learn more about this. So in terms of strength, this also has been fitting the bill due to price action. Slightly differently to ONDO, it is pretty much all fully in the market. You could view that as a good or a bad thing. The bad side is there's more tokens circulating, but the good side is there's no suppressatory price pressure coming from the team selling or early investors selling. And that can be a good thing longer term in terms of enabling sustainable price growth. So the infrastructure plays is something I've got my eye on. Going further with this subject of infrastructure plays, Pendle is one that is also indirect because it's not an RWA app layer chain. And you'll notice I am focusing mostly on the infrastructure here because I think they're the best proxies right now for the RWA market. There aren't many apps. I'll talk about one at the end that I like, but there aren't many amazing RWA apps currently in the market. Pendle is one where you essentially have yield aggregated and offered for RWA protocols on-chain because they've got a platform that's extremely versatile and enables you to have multiple financial products trading on it in terms of allowing liquidity providers to earn yield. They have been able to introduce things like the real-world asset financial product, which allows you to earn DeFi yield via their RWA partners. And basically the way Pendle is structured is that they can have a variety of partners that actually plug into Pendle and allow DeFi users to access it through Pendle. Pendle's one that I talked about in my RWA show in January. I talked about it at $1. I think it's now sitting at $3. So this one has performed super strongly, and it's one that I certainly on major dips I'm still interested in accumulating because it gives you exposure not just to RWA, but a variety of other sectors. And with the recent DeFi resurgence due to Athena, maybe I'll make a video in the future about this, it does become a reasonable proxy to that side of the game as well. And they have a very smart VE Pendle tokenomics flywheel that ties into that. Now, what are some of the other protocols I'm looking at in RWA? So those are some of the main ones. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. There isn't that much. That's why this list is relatively condensed. ONDO is by far the leader. Then you've got Centrifuge, which is okay. It's definitely a proxy, can be treated as such. Mantra, which I mentioned before. You've got Pendle. There aren't that many that I love. Now, this is because it's a relatively new industry. I mean, the whole concept of RWA hasn't had any sort of legitimacy lent towards it until recently, where BlackRock and these big players are stepping in. This should increase the amount of funding going into the space. Thus, I think we're going to see a lot of new launches harness the real-world asset tech. There are also protocols which, for a multitude of reasons, have been building throughout the bear market and haven't launched yet that are probably about to launch. So I'm going to keep my eye on some of these new launches because you've got to separate the two different types of RWA protocols. You've got your infrastructure protocols and your dApp layer protocols. Your infrastructure protocols facilitate and enable the importation of yield on-chain, or they just might be general infrastructure like a layer 1 or a layer 2 blockchain that enables real-world assets on that chain. Your dApp layer protocols, these are protocols which are utilizing real-world assets directly. So they might be buying up real estate and paying out a yield. They might be offering certain pools with bonds or, US dollars, treasuries, etc. Whatever they want to offer, money markets on chain, they could do that via a dApp. One interesting protocol that's going down the real estate side of things is Lingo. They're essentially going to be buying up real estate and using the yield to pay back to stakers of the token in terms of rewards. So you'll be able to earn things like holidays, hotel stays, coffee, rewards at shopping centers, etc., all via this token. So it's a utility token, but it's backed by real-world assets via their holding company that earn active yield. So this is a great example of a company that's actually able to offer the ability to earn yield, maybe in an indirect way from a rewards token, but nonetheless providing value to a staker via owning real assets. So essentially, you have some sort of exposure to owning a property, even though you don't actually own a property. And I think that's the number one benefit of RWA. It's giving the ability for people to access markets that they previously couldn't access due to the requirements that make it hard to access the stock market, due to the barrier to entry of something like the real estate market, which an application like Lingo helps solve. those are all great examples of the actual need for RWA in the market. So I am an investor in Lingo, but that one hasn't actually launched yet. The token is further down the track, but that's one to keep your eye on. Anything else to keep your eye on? I don't think so for now. Obviously, as I find them, I will let you know in the next video that I do on RWA. I'll update you with all the latest altcoins that I find. So make sure you are subscribed to get the latest picks. Wanted to come at you with an RWA update because I haven't done one in a couple months, but the sec definitely is still progressing. And obviously the latest announcement on the BlackRock side was massive news for the space. So definitely deserved a show today. I will see you in the next massive video on the weekend. I think you're really going to enjoy it. So keep your eye on those notifications. I'll see you later. Have a lovely rest of your day. Peace out.